There's a reason why, even with the passage of time, despite the silence and even after the choices you've made, that person still lingers in your thoughts, like a quiet echo that never fades. You may have tried everything, changing your surroundings, staying busy, even convincing yourself that you've moved on. Yet they return, through dreams, memories, music, and even in the words of others, who have no idea what they've triggered. So why won't this presence leave? What does it really mean to keep thinking about someone who's no longer part of your life? Carl Jung wouldn't have dismissed this as mere attachment or emotional dependence. For him, the unconscious mind operates on its own logic, one the conscious mind often struggles to grasp. When someone leaves a lasting imprint on your inner world, it doesn't always mean you're still in love or that you should reconnect. More often, it suggests there's something inside you that remains unseen, unhealed, or unacknowledged, something that this person brought to the surface. Jung believed our relationships are never random. Each person who enters our life, especially those who stir deep emotions, serves a psychological purpose. They act as mirrors, showing us aspects of ourselves we haven't yet recognized. That lingering mental presence may not even be about the person themselves, but rather about what they symbolized. Perhaps they reawakened an old wound, reflected an unconscious pattern from childhood, or triggered a shift within you that you don't yet fully understand. In this light, constantly thinking about someone is not necessarily unresolved love. It may be the sign of an incomplete inner journey. When the mind can't fully process an experience, it repeats it, trying to understand, to resolve, to heal. Until the lesson is integrated, it continues to resurface. Jung famously said, "What you do not make conscious will manifest as fate." So instead of resisting these thoughts, try listening, not out of nostalgia, but with curiosity. What part of you did they stir? What wounds did they touch? What emotions did they awaken? If someone is constantly in your mind, it's not them asking for attention. It's a part of you brought to light through that relationship that's asking to be seen. The mind holds on because something inside remains unfinished, and that unfinished business isn't outside you. It's not with the other person. It lives within you. This is where real inner work begins. It's not about cutting all ties or pretending they never mattered. It's about confronting the emotional truth they left behind, because as long as you avoid it, it will continue to follow you. This isn't about idealizing the past or holding on to something that no longer exists. It's about realizing your unconscious is still working through that connection. Jung explained that when emotional experiences are not resolved, they become energetic knots within the psyche, knots that shape future decisions, relationships, and even your self-worth. So when you think about that person, you're not just clinging to the past. You're revisiting something unresolved, something asking to be gently untangled, not with rejection, but with compassion. And no, you are not broken. You're not weak. You're not irrational for still thinking about someone. You're human. You're in the midst of one of the most meaningful psychological processes, integrating an emotional experience that changed you. Don't punish yourself for this. Instead, be grateful. Your mind is showing you exactly what still needs your care and attention. We often believe that it's love that binds us to someone, but sometimes it's not love. It's an unhealed emotion, an unmet need, or an unconscious projection. According to Jung, we don't love with the heart alone. We love with the entire psyche. And within that psyche are fragments of the past, suppressed desires, unresolved fears, and symbols that point us toward what we need to learn. So if you still think of that person, it may not be love. It may be a psychic echo, something inside you that responded to something in them, and that response has not yet been resolved. This persistent mental replay may point to an activated archetype. Maybe they symbolized a savior, an ideal, an emotional refuge, or even a hidden shadow disguised as light. Jung described the collective unconscious as filled with universal images that shape our inner world in ways we rarely see clearly. When someone activates one of those deep archetypes, the emotional impact can be profound, and even after they're gone, the sense of something missing may linger. Not because they're irreplaceable, but because the symbol they embodied remains unprocessed. This constant mental return isn't always about the person. It's often about the closure you seek, not with them, but within yourself. Your unconscious is pointing back to a moment of deep, emotional significance, not to trap you there, but to reclaim the parts of yourself you lost. Maybe you gave too much, silenced your needs, reshaped yourself to maintain harmony, or ignored your desires to keep the peace. Even if they're no longer in your life, the echo of that self-abandonment persists. Every time you think of them, your unconscious may be reminding you, here is where something essential was left behind. It's not about wanting them back, it's about returning to yourself. And that, Jung taught, is the real spiritual journey, retrieving what was lost in the name of love, even when that love came at the cost of your own truth. Thinking about someone isn't always about longing. Sometimes it's resistance to growth. Because growth means accepting that, no matter how meaningful the connection, its purpose may have already been served. Here's where the inner conflict emerges. Your rational mind says it's time to move forward, but your unconscious still seeks understanding. It doesn't want to forget. It wants to make sense of the experience, to transform pain into insight. And that takes presence, not more distractions, not more attempts to suppress the thought, but a sincere, compassionate look at what really happened. What did you learn about yourself? What parts of you grew? What parts shrank? Did you love them, or the image you created of them? These are not idle reflections. They're keys that unlock the parts of you that remained closed when the story ended. Your soul knows that thinking about them isn't random. It's a message. The more you allow yourself to hear that message without judgment, the closer you come to genuine closure. The kind that doesn't need conversations, apologies, or reunion, but instead arises from honest self-understanding. When Jung spoke of individuation, this is what he meant: the return to the self. Every relationship, every loss, every love leaves a mark, not to define you, but to refine you. Each person you've loved has reflected something hidden in you, something you had yet to meet. So when you think of them, what you're really seeing is yourself, illuminated in a new light. Some bonds don't end with absence. Some people still shape your thoughts, your feelings, even your daily life, long after they're gone. That's the power of psychological connection. It's not measured by physical presence, but by the imprint left behind. And that imprint, Jung believed, is more than just leftover love. It's the mark of your unconscious responding to the role that person played. You're not stuck in the past because you're weak. You're here because your soul still has something to say through that experience, something you may not have been able to hear while emotionally involved. When we're immersed in intense relationships, clarity is hard to find. Emotions blur perception. But when the noise settles, insight can emerge. So thinking of someone isn't always a step backward. It can mark the start of true understanding, the beginning of wisdom waiting to rise. Jung believed that meaningful encounters aren't accidental. They're soul recognitions, often beyond what the conscious mind can grasp. This is why, even when you try to let go, something within resists, because there's still a message waiting, but that message isn't in them. It's in you, in what the relationship awakened, in how it changed you. We often think that if we just understood the other person, why they acted how they did, we'd find peace. But true closure doesn't come from them. It comes from what you're ready to see within yourself. Yes, maybe they hurt you, betrayed you, left without explanation, But underneath that pain is a lesson, one your soul is still processing. And that lesson isn't found in analysis. It lives in the emotional residue still within you. What remains is not the person, but the unprocessed experience, an unresolved story, still waiting to be felt and released. Most times, it's not the person we struggle to let go of. It's the version of ourselves we became with them. The side of you that was vulnerable, perhaps unfamiliar, and maybe even rejected, left without closure. That version of you is still seeking understanding. And your mind keeps replaying the story, not because you need answers from them, but because you need to accept that part of yourself with love. You don't need more external validation. You need to stop avoiding what you still feel. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." Often, it's not the thought that won't go away, it's the emotion you've been avoiding. So ask yourself, what did you really feel in that relationship? What fear was too heavy to face? What part of you went silent just to keep the peace? This is where the true source of attachment lies. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It's not a straight line. It's a descent into your depths. And while that may hurt, it's also how you know something inside you is waking up. Maybe the answer isn't to stop thinking about that person. Maybe it's to stop blaming yourself for still feeling something at all. You no longer need someone's physical presence to feel at peace, and that is true freedom. When you can recall memories without pain, let go without fear, and love without attachment, something profound shifts. At some point, you may have tried to replace that person, maybe deliberately, seeking someone to fill the emptiness, or maybe unconsciously finding yourself comparing each new connection to the one who is gone. But no matter how many attempts you make, something still feels off. Nothing quite aligns. No new experience resonates the same way. This isn't necessarily because the person was irreplaceable. It's because the connection went beyond the physical. It was symbolic. It awakened a part of you that had never surfaced before. And now, the real journey is about getting to know that part of yourself, not through someone else, but through your own self-discovery. That's where healing begins. That's where your strength is reclaimed. That's where you find the version of you who not only survives without them, but truly thrives. Carl Jung taught that every meaningful bond activates a deeper dimension within us, a layer of the psyche that often lies dormant until stirred by a profound emotional connection. When you miss someone, it's not just their presence you long for. You're yearning for the version of yourself that emerged in that relationship. Maybe you were more open, more emotionally attuned, or perhaps you lost yourself in that bond, giving up parts of who you were to keep the connection intact. Either way, thinking of them is, at its core, a call to rescue and embrace a forgotten aspect of yourself. This is what transforms memory into wisdom. Your unconscious is always working toward internal balance. It isn't against you. It doesn't want you stuck in the past or suffering. It uses what it can, dreams, emotions, recurring thoughts, to nudge you toward healing. If someone often comes to mind, it's not random. There's an emotional thread you haven't fully unraveled. Not through logic, but through symbolism. Jung believed healing is not a purely rational process. It's an inner alchemy, a transformation that occurs when the unconscious becomes conscious. This can't be forced. It requires stillness, reflection, and a willingness to understand what your experiences have meant. Not from a place of regret, but from a place of gratitude. Not gratitude for the loss, but for what the connection taught. Every relationship that leaves an imprint also plants the seed for transformation. Even if right now all you feel is sadness or confusion, hidden within that pain is a key part of your awakening. The aim isn't to erase the memory, but to release the burden it carries. That happens only when you stop searching outside for clarity and begin looking inward. acknowledging your role in what you felt. This isn't about blame. It's about taking back your power, understanding why you held on so tightly, why you idealized that person, and why their absence still hurts. Jung believed that the unconscious doesn't just store memories. It holds them as active symbols that shape how we perceive life. That person may have unknowingly triggered your transformation. They may have been a mirror, reflecting hidden aspects of yourself. What feels like attachment may simply be a stage in that unfolding process. You don't need to force them from your thoughts. Instead, ask what they represent. What part of you did they stir awake? What inner promise do they still symbolize? Only then can you truly turn the page, not by forgetting, but by bringing genuine closure. And closure doesn't always mean finality in the traditional sense. Sometimes real love enters our lives to reveal something vital, and then it leaves. When we struggle to accept this, we can remain emotionally frozen, waiting endlessly for something to return that has already served its purpose. Your mind is not the issue. Your feelings are not the problem. The conflict arises when we try to forget without fully understanding. This is where Jung's teachings invite us deeper. Stop looking for solutions outside yourself. Instead, engage with the part of you that still wants to be seen and heard. Only then will the image of that person lose its grip, not because you've erased them, but because they no longer have something left to teach you. When someone persists in your thoughts despite time, distance, and logic insisting you've moved on, what's truly surfacing isn't them. It's an inner process seeking completion. Your psyche is calling for attention from within, and no matter how often you try to suppress it, the unconscious doesn't disappear when ignored. It reshapes itself into symptoms, repetitive thoughts, unexplained emotions, decisions you can't make sense of. It will remain until you face it and finally integrate it. According to Jung, the soul has its own intelligence, an ancient wisdom that doesn't follow logical patterns or timelines. It speaks through images, symbols, and emotionally charged experiences. If your soul keeps returning to someone, it's not about going back to the past. It's about reclaiming the part of yourself that the connection awakened. That person may have been a source of joy or pain, clarity or confusion, but what matters now is what they stirred within you. Often, we enter relationships from a place of unspoken lack. We seek in others what we haven't yet given to ourselves. And when those relationships end, it can feel like something vital has been ripped away. But what truly hurts isn't the absence of that person. It's the emptiness they exposed. Jung saw every loss as an invitation, a chance to see that emptiness not as a punishment, but as fertile soil for growth. For that growth to happen, you must stop focusing on what's missing and start understanding what that absence is trying to show you. It's not about staying busy or becoming emotionally numb. It's about gently descending into the space that still hurts with the intention of learning from it, because when you bring awareness to your pain, it loses control over you. It stops defining you and becomes a gateway to something more meaningful. Jung emphasized that it's in moments of internal crisis that the soul finds its chance to expand. This urge to revisit someone in your mind may be your soul's way of prompting growth, encouraging you to see beyond the surface. Not every feeling is a signal to act externally. Sometimes what you feel is an invitation to go inward. Explore your emotional history, your needs, and your relationship patterns. You might be repeating an old emotional imprint, perhaps from early relationships in childhood. And this person, the one you can't stop thinking about, may have unknowingly reignited that old pattern, not to confuse you, but to offer a new chance at healing. Once you understand this, something shifts. That person is no longer an obsession or an unhealed wound. They become a symbol, a cue to explore what you've been avoiding. Maybe it's a need for validation. Maybe it's a fear of inadequacy. Maybe it's the belief that someone else must complete you. And in realizing this, you reclaim your strength, because what you thought only they could give you now begins to emerge from within. This is deep inner work. It's not easy, but it's transformative. It's about understanding what that relationship reflected about you. It's about finding meaning in the memories. It's about being grateful even for what hurt, because pain often brings hidden truths to light. And when you do this, your energy changes. You stop fighting the past. You stop waiting for thoughts to fade. Instead, you begin embracing what belongs to you, the insight, the growth, the emergence of a new version of yourself that came forth through that connection. Eventually, there will come a time when that person no longer lingers in your mind the way they once did. Not because you've erased them, not because you've replaced them, but because they no longer hold the same emotional space within you. The memory will stay, but the pain will not. The story will remain, but it won't disturb your peace. Your emotions will no longer be dictated by what was, and on that day, without even noticing, you will have completed a cycle. Because what is truly released is not the person. It's the energy you invested in them, the expectations, the unanswered questions, the emotional weight, all of it transformed. What's left is peace. A peace that's real. A peace that comes, not from forgetting, but from understanding. Not from escape, but from integration. Jung once said that there is no awakening of consciousness without pain. And yes, thinking about someone constantly can be painful, but it can also mean you're on the edge of transformation. Don't run from these feelings. Don't shame yourself for remembering. Instead, listen to what your soul is saying through them, because behind every emotion lies a truth, and that truth is not outside of you. It has always been within. You are experiencing something many people go through, but few are willing to face with depth. If you're hearing this now, it means something in you is ready to let go. Not out of rejection, but from understanding. Not from detachment, but from self-love. That is the kind of closure your soul truly needs. And when you do this, you not only heal yourself, you create a path for others to do the same, because your process has meaning, your pain has meaning. And so does your transformation. If this message resonated with you, if at any point it felt like it spoke directly to your soul, then we invite you to be part of this growing community. This isn't just a channel for content. It's a space for connection, reflection, and inner growth. Every time you share your experience, leave a comment, or support this video, you contribute to something larger than yourself. You help someone else feel seen. You help this message reach those who need it most. There are people out there going through what you've been through, lost in uncertainty, unable to express what they feel. And maybe, just maybe, your voice is the bridge that leads them to clarity. Maybe your words are the sign they've been waiting for to realize they are not alone. This platform exists for a reason, to remind you that your emotions matter, that the work you do to heal, grow, and understand yourself is not only reshaping your life, it's inspiring others to transform as well. So if this touched something deep inside you, if it sparked a realization or even just a sense of recognition, know that it mattered. You matter, and your journey is part of something much greater than you may realize.